And of course, there is a crocodile waiting in the wing. A rather large one at that. It's so difficult for these wildebeest to cross the river. He's smelling it. Look at that. Oh, it's carrying the whole thing away.
Well, hello again. It is another day, so time for another safari. And today we are actually going to check the river because yesterday we had word that there was quite a big crossing and we actually want to go and check, not for the crossing itself, but for the aftermath of the crossing. Because the wildebeest come through in very large numbers a lot of the time, sometimes smaller groups as we've been seeing here on the Mara, but normally when there's big groups of wildebeest, it means there's a lot of casualties. And so we actually want to go and see if there's any aftermath after a crossing in the river.
We heard about a rather large herd of wildebeest that crossed the river not very far from camp this morning. It's not one of the main crossings that we used to seeing the wildebeest cross at, which was interesting. And the reason it's not one of the main crossings is because it's quite rocky. So we started our safari this morning already at that crossing point, and you can see a small herd of wildebeest that I think are the ones that have already crossed. There's quite a lot of them around. You can see them all looking at the water, maybe debating whether to go back to the others, maybe waiting for the others to come to them, because they will actually cross again if they feel like they're unsafe on this side and there's too few of them to fend off predators, which could very well be on either side of the river, who knows. Then they may very well cross again and risk going through the water and past the crocodiles again, which is actually what we came to investigate today. So these must be the lucky few that have come through, but they keep looking up and looking towards the river as though they're expecting others to come through. And I don't think we're going to get that today. I think it's highly likely that the rest won't come through. Probably because they saw how difficult it was to get across here. Ah, but there's also some banded mongooses that have come to join. Look at it lounging on the termite mound. I love that. These are very closely related to the dwarf mongooses, which we've seen a couple of times. Not here in the Mara, but we have seen them on our virtual safaris. These guys, however, are a lot bigger. Much, much larger in size. Probably, I'd say even 3 to 4 times the size of the dwarf mongoose. And there's a zebra coming to eat the grass on the termite mound where their little burrows are. Look at how they're banding together to get past the zebra. Now these guys are not shy normally. They are, in fact, incredibly aggressive towards predators. And they typically tend to eat snakes. Look at all of them grooming together. They all just piled on top of one another. It's because they can live in groups of anywhere between 6 to 40 individuals. So the stronger that bond is between all members of their little band, the better. Otherwise, how else are they going to survive out here? And speaking of survival, look at who else has decided to join the fray. It looks like a member of the River Pride. Now remember, the River Pride is a pride of 5 lionesses, the ones that a few episodes ago we actually watched them feeding on an old hippo carcass, and it looks like she's maybe come through here because maybe she heard the crossing happening or can smell some of the wildebeest that maybe didn't make it and that are starting to bloat in the sun in the river. Who knows? But she's definitely come to investigate. And I wonder if the other lionesses are not around, but right now it looks like it's just her. And it does seem she keeps picking her head up and into the wind. She is heading in the direction where those other wildebeest went, so I wonder she's not trying to catch up with them and look for a bit of an easier meal. Oh, well, it looks like she's going to be on her way and looking for those other wildebeest. So I think let's head down towards the river, because that's actually why we came here today. And now you can really see how rocky it is. Look at all of those rocks in the river itself. And you can see on the opposite bank where the sand has been pushed down towards the rocky section. And that must be where the wildebeest crossed. And there's actually already a dead wildebeest that's been washed up onto those rocks. You can see it's bloated a little bit. There's actually a couple of carcasses here. There's 2 there. So that's 3 in total already. It just shows you how difficult it really is for these wildebeest to cross the river. And of course, there is a crocodile waiting in the wing. A rather large one at that. But we'd mentioned before that it's so difficult for these wildebeest to cross the river because coming down the bank, they could easily injure themselves. Crossing the river, they could injure themselves. In the river, they've got the threat of crocodiles. And then, of course, climbing out of the river, same threat as before when they were coming down. Oh, look, there's a croc actually going to one of the carcasses. Look at that. It looks like it's already torn a hole in the back end of that wildebeest. And now it's trying to get in there, which is going to be a little bit difficult because crocodiles don't have teeth like a lion would. So a lion would be able to saw off bits of meat, bits of skin, and get in there a little bit more easily. They can rip, they can tear. Crocs don't really have that. Of course, their teeth are still very sharp, but they don't have the same kind of serrations that something like a lion would on their teeth. So it's a lot more difficult for them to pull off bits of meat. And here comes another crocodile, which is both a good thing and a bad thing for crocs. Not really a bad thing, but they'll see it that way. They're very defensive over carcasses. And sometimes when other crocodiles start to smell the blood in the water, they obviously head towards it because why not? It's a free meal. But it means they can be quite frenzied feeding, which, I mean, to the croc who wants to keep the carcass all to itself, not such a great thing, right? But it might actually be better for the crocodile to have a little bit more competition, because they might then try and do a bit of a tug of war, in which case they're able to pull bits of meat off a little bit more easily than if they were just feeding on their own. And the other croc's just sitting by the other carcass. It almost seems like they're defending a carcass each, which they could very well be, not wanting to share. Oh, and this massive crocodile's got what looks to be a wildebeest calf. Is he going to feed? He's smelling it. Look at that. Oh, it's a little bit freaky to watch them move in such a robotic fashion. Look how big it is in compared to the wildebeest calf. Oh my goodness gracious, that is a big crocodile. It's carrying the whole thing away. That is incredible. It looks like it's taken it further downstream. And it looks like it's struggling against the rapids a little bit. Look at how it's trying to push against the rapids. I don't know if it's trying to stash that carcass maybe somewhere under the water so that it actually rots away a little bit. That way, it sits, decomposes for a little bit, and through that decomposition, it's easier to tear off bits of meat, but it also makes it easier for them to digest. They use a technique known as a death roll, doing a 360-degree roll to try and rip off chunks of meat. And it looks like there, it's going in for the death roll. Oh my gosh. Imagine how much strength and power it must take to be able to do that. And fighting against another crocodile at the same time. And look at how after that roll, they've basically torn that wildebeest into 2 halves. That's pretty impressive to me. Well, one croc's also getting a little bit more feisty. They're dragging it back into the river. It's trying very hard to take that carcass back. But I think between now playing tug of war and fighting against the river current, it's a bit tricky. He's going back towards the bank. Oh, look at that. Oh, is he going to swallow it? No way. That was the largest chunk of meat I think I've ever seen any predator swallow. Which is pretty typical of crocodiles because they don't have the tooth structure to slice off bits of meat or pull off bits of meat. They don't have the tooth structure to chew either, so they just swallow off massive chunks of meat. Oh, and there's a small herd of wildebeest on the bank. Looks like mainly youngsters. I wonder if maybe they're not looking down waiting for mum to come up the bank, and unfortunately she's not going to do that. Oh, and the crocodiles have moved into a bit of a gully. Look at how fierce they're being now, splashing around a lot. It just shows you how a bit of competition in this case can actually be a great deal of cooperation for these animals. Without even realizing it. I mean, for them it's just instinct, but fighting over that carcass is actually helping them to break it down a lot more easily than it would if it was just one of them attempting this. Oh, another death roll. He's stuck on that position. Look at that. You can see his belly. Wow. Well, I don't think we're going to see much more carnage than that. And they've still got a lot of wildebeest here to take care of. So I think it's best really for us to leave them be a little bit. I'm quite looking forward to enjoying some live wildebeest rather. Just to end off our safari and enjoy the short drive back towards the lodge. And here's the rest of the herd, it looks like. Just hundreds and hundreds of wildebeest. We only saw a small portion of them earlier, but it seems like there were a lot more that crossed than we anticipated. Just a fascinating experience for me to witness crocodiles feeding. It's not something that you typically get to see on just your average safari. Obviously, watching documentaries, you get a sense of what that's like, but to see it in real life, it's pretty spectacular. I am very much looking forward to getting back to camp and having a dinner of my own, but maybe eating it in a much more polite manner.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to this video, and please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. We'd love to hear from you and your thoughts on this week's WILDwatch Virtual Safari.